this genre isn't just about missing people. It's a genre that's consumed by people who are missing their own people. And it reminds me that
this is I want to believe,
Yeah,
like
and I think you've covered this on previous shows with your conversations with scholars who are way more educated than I am. But in the second half of the 19th century, the whole rise of spiritualism was on the back of the Civil War, because you had a mass trauma of missing people, and the desire for all those seances in the elite middle class rooms of people's houses, and like the desire to learn about ghosts, which was huge well until the early 20th century, and even occupied the not only the minds of people like William James, but it occupied huge waves of literary scholarship around ghosts, such as his brother Henry James and others who wrote ghost stories. That a lot of that impulse was all in the after shadow of the Civil War's 500,000 dead, but also hundreds of thousands more casualties and injuries and etc. All these broken lives. And it goes back to the religious thing too a little bit, because the spiritualism is in some ways like a secular phenomenon of spiritual desire. And it's like one of the things all those religions promise, aside from an afterlife in their various ways, we're talking about the big three here, is they purport to explain a resting place for your missing, and they all are mostly reassuring you that your good missing are at peace, and that there's a community beyond where there's rest, and
there's an answer too. You know what I mean? Like, it's sort of like
here's the place where they are.
I feel like oftentimes, and I consider myself feeling like this a lot too, and maybe it's a point of comfort or whatever, but like it's a way of dealing with the finality of death, is seeming like, oh, when you die you find out whatever it is, they give you the answer. It's not just infinite blackness forever. There's some sort of answer, and there's some sort of, like, in the same way there'd be a resolution to the story of all these people that are in this documentary who are genuinely heartbroken that their family members have disappeared in this way. They have in some ways they have that same hope of, like, there'll be an answer to this in one day. And like part it's interesting because we're sitting here being like, well, it's okay for things not to have an answer, but at the same time, the fact that these people don't have answers for what happened to their brothers and sons and wives is enormously disturbing to them. Like, it wrecks their lives to not know. And that part of it is, like, I guess the balance of being alive is the not knowing but needing to know at the same time.
Yeah. And I would, for my final comment here, I would just say that there's two other conclusions one can draw about this genre and the politics of nostalgia traps. And one of them is people's broken lives, or people's lives that are broken by their missing, are so consuming as projects that politics can become secondary. And so when you think of the all-consuming political certitude that's like frothed out on Twitter of all sides and by people who are just like rabidly pontificating their fucking absolute convictions about shit as if there's no gray area, compared to all that, these projects searching out these mysteries is like not only sometimes more attractive and appealing than hearing the fount of wisdom from some of these folks, but it's also more important. It's like the spiritual path ends up being not just a delusion, but it can also feel like a better route towards how you're going to spend your rapidly declining time on Earth.
Yes.
And then the other,
and that's why people go to church, man. I really feel that. Yeah. I mean, I know it mixes with politics, but I feel what you're saying is that there's a lot of people feel that the spiritual element, and I'm kind of in it, is more important to them. And ultimately, when things get serious in life, I don't give a fuck what Tucker Carlson is saying on Fox News.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And also, and I think that's why Tucker Carlson and a lot of these political parties try to link their projects to spiritual projects.
Because they know it has that power.
Yes. And on that note...